So that night, I was at home. My wife and kids were gone, and I had eaten dinner. My wife comes in, and she belongs to the volunteer fire department also in Kitimat village. So she comes screaming in the house saying, people are saying there's somebody in the water. So just first reaction, I jumped up. I threw her my phone, and as we're running out the door, and this happened within seconds, and I said, call Everett and tell him I need him. 30 seconds, I was at the office because I was doing like 80, 90 kilometers an hour down the road. And when he met me there, I said, I'm getting the keys, you get down to the boat. And then me and Everett were on the water within 3-4 minutes. And it happened a little too quick. I didn't prepare myself to, and neither did Everett. I didn't grab any rain gear. I had a thin jacket on with this long sleeve actually, and it was raining, very windy. You know, that lack of preparation on my part I was cold. So some of the stuff that we learned at the SARS program in Bamfield was, the different search patterns. And I told them all we're going to do is we're going to go in a straight line for maybe 200 yards, and then we're going to do a quick 90 degrees for maybe 10 seconds, and then we're going to do another 90 degrees. And we're going to keep doing that until we find something. Within a couple of minutes, behind us, I heard somebody say, he's over here. And I said, hit the north end and then we'll cut in a little bit. So when we got there, I heard the first kind of muffled yell for help is when I heard, and it turned out it was George, who I've known since I was a kid, or since he was a kid. I said, he's at 11 o'clock. We started going, and it was about a minute after that was the second answer because I was screaming at him, and I recognized his voice. So I started screaming his name, George, is that you? And he said, yes. I seen something in the water, and then it turned out it was him, and he was kind of holding onto a little log, maybe. He let it go when he seen us, and then I recognized right away that he doesn't have his EFD. It's not zippered up. Came right alongside, tried to give him the paddle to hold on to, but he couldn't lift his arms, and he couldn't hold it at all. And at that time, when he got so close, just to the bow of our boat, that's when I seen his eyes roll into the back of his head, and I was like, oh man, he doesn't have much time at all. I was thinking to myself, I walked with him from the bow to the stern, and I jumped onto the swim grid, and I tried to grab him. He's slippery with his stuff, and then I ended up grabbing him by the scruff of the neck and a little bit of his hair, held him. Everett jumped back, he stopped the boat, and then he jumped onto the swim grid with me, and he was on the extreme outside of the swim grid. And the plan was just to get him in. We didn't know how, and he was a big boy, and he was soaking wet, and just the adrenaline. We yanked him out of the water just like that, trying to check I couldn't feel anything. His hands were completely dead, and he was, I know he stopped shaking too at that time, and he was in dire straits. I said, we have to get him in, but at the same time, I'm trying to scream at him, and I'm pinching him. I pinched him on the nerve there, and he came to, and he said something when I asked him, well, where's Tony? And he said, I don't know. And then he was done, he couldn't talk again. Pulled him in as best we could, and then I jumped over, went into the cabin, and took off on the radio, because I had the volunteer fire department radio, and I radioed ahead just to get the paramedics down to the dock. So we got him in as quick as we could. And all that happened within 15 to 19 minutes. So I talked to George, and he told me what he remembers was that when they were leaving what's called Maggie Point, it was 3 o'clock, around about 3 o'clock that afternoon. The tide was coming down. It was just starting, but when the tide comes down at that spot, it's like a river. It just flows out so fast, and it's so shallow that the waves can get to about anywhere between 3 to 7 feet. And they were on a 12-foot skiff, I believe it was, and it wasn't good enough. So their lack of knowledge for that spot put them in jeopardy right away. He said, Tony screamed at him and said, we're taking on water, get to the bow. So he tried to go, but when he did, the shuffle and the waves coming from the stern, that's where they took on the water. He said when he turned back, their gas tank was already floating, and it was too late at that point. They didn't have a proper bailer, I believe, also, and their boat got taken by a wave and swept over top. They held onto the boat for, he doesn't remember how long, but He said he couldn't stay. He wanted to jump over and go swim for help. Tony, unfortunately, said you can't go without the life jacket, and he took the only life jacket off that they had and gave it to George.